All right, folks, it's part 2 of my hour-and-a-half long discussion with the great Herms as he's going back and rewatching the Dragon Ball anime, giving his analysis. We just had a fun little discussion, him and I. So this is part 2, and if you haven't heard part 1 yet, I'll leave in the description the link to go back and check out part 1. We're going to pick up talking about Dragon Ball Z right before the Namek arc and kind of go from there. We also talked about the movie, so I hope everybody enjoys it. And let me know if you like Herms and I just chit-chatting. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get to it.
I've come back from the future to warn you that if you don't subscribe to Geekdom 101, your future is grim.
Now, what did you think about the... Now, you said this off-air, but we're going to talk about it now on-air. The fake Namek. Worst filler arc ever. Even worse than the Potafu stuff, according to you.
Yeah. Well, I should say that I didn't mind this Potafu story arc in Super that we just wrapped up. I mean, I didn't think it was the greatest thing ever, but I guess... I think the fact that we learned about the Trunks thing coming up has kind of made people... people halfway... I think it was after the first episode that we learned... Or was it even... Okay, when did we learn of the Trunks story arc in relation to this Potafu thing?
Oh, well, you and I talked about the night it broke. We did a video about it. It was about a month ago.
Yeah, okay.
We were right around the party filler, right after the wish was made.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, I guess it seems like we kind of knew going into it that it was going to be just, a short little thing before the real next storyline started.
So you think that people already checked out? That's what you're telling me
right
now.
Generally. And then, so we knew Trunks, and then midway through, there's there's just been more and more revelations as of the new story arc, and so that's held people's interest more than the actual episodes on TV. But
yeah, well, I mean, like I told you before on the air, the views that not just me, but all of us, me, QAAMAN, a lot of the Dragon Ball YouTubers, our reviews have been doing less views for those episodes. Other videos have done very well, and it's because there's not a lot of interest, in this arc from the vast majority of the fandom, it seems.
Yeah. And I mean, I can't really blame. I don't think it's the greatest arc ever, but I don't think it's terrible. And so, yeah, I will go on record as saying that I think it is substantially better than Fake Namek, which is probably, at this point, it's the thing I've liked least.
All right, what bugs you about Fake Namek? Now, actually, before I get into that, I want to ask you a sub-question. The stuff with the children on the ship, episode 39, Friends or Foes, I like that stuff. That pre-introduction to Frieza gave us kind of a little Star Trek vibe. We see Kui there making a little brief cameo. I thought that stuff was fantastic, but I agree the Fake Namek arc isn't. What'd you think about that? And then why do you hate the Fake Namek arc so much?
So, so with the Space Orphans...
Orphans, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess similar to the quest for the water, not the superhuman water, the super god water, in the Piccolo arc, with that, I didn't like the first episode, but the second episode I thought was really good. And so the same thing with this, where the first episode of the Space Orphan thing, where they go to the ship and they're wandering around and they don't meet anyone, I didn't like that too much, because it was essentially, they just take an episode to reach the actual filler plot line.
Yep.
So it's like filler for other filler. But once they actually meet the orphans and they're like, oh yeah, our planet got destroyed by, Frieza. And yeah, I did, like you said, I think it's a very interesting way of introducing Frieza. Rather than meeting him directly, we see the effects of what he's done, and we, hear of his reputation. And in the manga, we get that a little bit, too, where in the manga, the first time we hear the name Frieza is when Vegeta goes to Planet Frieza 79.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, there's the narration box saying, Planet Frieza, number 79. And so, we're not introduced to this guy as a character yet, but we see a place that's been named after him.
Well, we don't know it's named after him yet.
Yeah, we just get that name, but, even on its own, the fact that there's 79 planets named Frieza kind of tells you something odd is going on here. And then when we learn that there's a person named Frieza, then we think, oh, aha! This Frieza person is apparently, he's got 79 planets named after him. He's apparently taking over planets.
Well, you've got 98 according to your Twitter, so...
Yeah.
At least.
And I'll get that 99th planet someday, but...
Well, it'll be Earth.
Slow going. Anyway, so... And yeah, so it's kind of a similar thing where just like indirectly introducing the character rather than just going like, okay, here's your new enemy. It's this dude. So
Now, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
yeah, so I thought that was interesting. But then fake Namek, like I get. Oh well, the thing is, like, it's just a big waste of like it's boring and it steals the thunder from the actual Namek arc once they get there. Like, so you see, like, the first Namekians we see are these, well, like, we see these fake ones before we get the real, in the anime version. Like, it kind of throws everything off. Like, we get it looked, they go through the fake version, which has several differences from the real version we see later, but still it's similar. It's similar in a way that doesn't make any sense once you realize that the only reason it looks that way is because they read their memories. Like, they read their memories, Bulma and the others, like, even though they haven't been to the real Namek, they somehow know that it has those trees. You know, the thin,
the tall,
Agisa is what they get called later on. But yeah, so somehow it has those distinctive trees, even though they shouldn't yet know that those trees are Namek. And then also, like, the first episode, if you look closely, well, not even closely, but when they crash land on there, the first episode, the planet already looks like Namek, even though the backstory is that after they crash, the aliens read their mind and then create the illusion that it's Namek. So it's a fairly large plot hole.
So
and then,
did they? So the only conclusion is that maybe they read their minds when they were still in space, but that doesn't make that.
Well, that contradicts what they say.
That's not what they said. Yeah, you know
so,
what? It is kind of dumb.
Like, there's many things about this storyline that don't make much sense, which I could overlook if the rest of it was good. But it's like, at a basic level, their search for the Dragon Balls on that planet, it's not very interesting. Like, they just walk around. They go, you know, there's the acid swamp, which is kind of, I don't know, it's kind of interesting, but then it's like, would acid work on them? I don't know.
What about they actually did a hunt for the Dragon Balls? Like, it was like a throwback, but it was just kind of a boring throwback.
Yeah, essentially it's just they walk around and there's not much danger. There's a scene where they're being chased by the giant snowball, Indiana Jones style, and at the very end, they eventually just fly out of the way, and it's like, why didn't they just do that before?
Yeah, I don't know. And they're also super powered.
Yeah, it's like, it's a lot of these it's these dangers that made sense at the start of the series before everyone was super powerful and could just fly and all those things, and they're kind of just repeating that without
yeah,
really
that's what I'm saying. It's like a throwback, but it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and you know that, and okay, so the other thing that really annoys me is that
no, actually, I'm sorry. You said that Garlic Jr. is worse, in your opinion.
Oh yeah, that's true. I don't know. Well, I haven't rewatched that yet, so
okay.
I have to reserve judgment until I've actually rewatched that saga. I guess saga's an inapt term, but if you
don't even start that one now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if anything least deserves the term saga applied to it, then it would be the Garlic Jr. saga.
What would you call it? Junk?
Yeah, well, I don't know.
I mean, there's good and bad. You know, there's good concepts. I mean, I thought the Blackwater Mist was a good concept.
I think if they had made it a movie, it would have been a really good movie, probably.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean,
whereas Fake Namek would not have made a good movie.
No, I agree.
Would have made any sense as a movie, but even that.
Hell no, it wouldn't have. Now, I want to ask you about the movies, but before we go there, I wanted to ask you one last thing about the Namek thing. Your thoughts on the pacing? I felt that the manga was paced much better for the Namek arc, because I thought the Frieza arc, whatever, because episodes 36 to 107 is a long time. I'm just saying.
Yes. So currently I'm on episode 67, which means I've got 40 more episodes to go.
That means you got Raditz next. That means you have to go back to Raditz again.
Yes. Per the old syndication, or was that Toonami?
No, for Toonami. Yeah, syndication. Well, actually, Toonami did it too, but yeah, it's back to Raditz again. For those who don't know, you have to be old school. Episode 67 is where the original run of Dragon Ball Z ended for like 2 years before we got season 3. So everybody will remember seeing the narrator, hearing the narrator say, "Has Goku really become a Super Saiyan? Find out on the next episode of Dragon Ball Z." And then the next week we're back to Raditz again. What a cliffhanger for 2 years. Bad.
Anyway, so but I'm
pacing.
personally not going to start over again.
No, good.
Anyway, but yeah, I mean, I think this is. I mean, talking about the manga being better, just as far as this goes, yeah, just the story arc gets increasingly in the anime gets increasingly stretched out, and I mean, we're getting to the point where, like these last 2 episodes I've done, it's kind of like just one thing will happen in the episode. And then, everything else, it's just like things leading up to the one thing that happens, and then the thing that happens, and then like people reacting to the thing that happened. And so like episode 66, I guess, is when Goku defeats Raccoon. And it seems like that's kind of like he shows up and he, dramatically walks up and starts to, prepares to fight him. And then when he does fight him, he just takes him down in one blow. And then everyone reacts to that with amazement. And it's like, it's not a bad episode, but it's like, it seems like that they could have squeezed that into the first half of an episode if they had really wanted, without losing too much. And if my memory is correct, this problem is just going to get gradually worse as the story arc progresses until we get the Frieza fight with the 5 minutes thing, which is beyond a joke. Just been done into the ground. How ridiculous that whole thing is.
It's even worse than the anime, bro. Manga,
manga, it's not bad.
It's not that bad at all, especially because how fast do you read? But anime, yeah, it's horrible. So before we get out of here, we've been talking for an hour. It's going to be an hour-long discussion with Herms, bro, which is fine. I'm cool with it. I wanted to ask you, movies. You've been rewatching the movies as well. You watched the Dragon Ball ones too, correct?
Yeah.
I remember you tweeted about those. Yeah. Did you watch Goku's Traffic Safety and Fire Brigade? Because you're missing out.
No.
You're missing out, bro. You're missing out. But okay, movies. Actually, you said you did rewatch the Bardock special, which is not a movie, but I did want to get your thoughts on that real quick.
Yeah, well, essentially, I'm trying to watch them approximately in when they came out in relation to the main series.
Yeah.
Which is a bit tricky with the movies. They have a release date generally at, whatever anime festival was going on at the time. And so you can see like, okay, it aired on this date, and then it'll generally come between 2 episodes. With the Bardock special, of course, it actually aired
TV.
in place. Yeah. So that's real easy. It aired in place of, I believe it aired between episodes 62 and 63. Which is about when Goku arrives on Namek.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, I mean, if people don't know, it's, 1 week they had episode 62 during the time slot. Next week after that, they aired the Bardock special during that time slot.
Yeah.
And then the next week after that was episode 63. And
yeah,
so,
I did a video called Bardock and Trunks Are Not Movies. Go check it out. Letting everybody know.
Yeah. So that's the difference, is that these weren't aired in theaters. It was aired in place. It's essentially a special episode.
It's a 1 hour long episode, pretty much. Yeah. But I wanted to get your thoughts. Do you remember it more fondly now than when you were younger? When you saw it the first time?
I've always liked it. So
very dark.
Yeah. So with all these things I'm watching, whenever I tweet about it, I give a kind of score out of 5, and with it's a bit slapdash, but 3 is generally good, not great, and then basing everything else around that. And so at this point, I've only given a 5 out of 5 to 4 things, which are, okay, let's see, Dragon Ball.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm trying to keep this strict, but I don't want to, there's no point in just giving 5s out to everything, because then it doesn't mean anything.
I agree.
And also just get kind of boring. But
I think there's a lot of 5-star episodes in the Saiyan arc, I think. But go ahead.
I mean, I did. Okay, so far I've got Dragon Ball episode 28, which is the end of the 21st tournament.
With Misato Tenkaichi playing in the background?
Yeah, and the double knockout kick. And
guys, if you haven't seen that in Japanese, you need to, because that music is cut from the English version. You gotta see that scene.
Which, I mean, apart from just being a great episode, I think it really encapsulates the series and the themes and like Goku's character. Like all the best parts of his character are shown during that episode. And then after that, Dragon Ball Movie 2, Sleeping Princess and Devil's Castle.
You really liked that one.
Yeah, it's more. I guess I could say it's more of a personal favorite because it does not encapsulate the series in any way. It's kind of it's one of those things where it's just this kind of weird one-off thing that's not. It's pretty. It's kind of it has its own feeling. It's kind of different from the rest of the series.
It's probably the most slept on movie in the entire bunch.
Yeah, but
Nobody
for me,
ever talks about that movie, Herms.
Yeah, but I just I love all the monsters and has my favorite evil villain plan. One of them at least, where they're like it's like such cartoon logic where it's like these guys they don't like the sun, so they're going to blow it up with a giant laser cannon.
Yep, love it. Pinky in the Brain style.
Yeah.
Right.
And anyway, so that one I really like, and then Dragon Ball Z episode 31, which was the beam struggle, and then. Okay, so it starts out with a Kaioken times 3, and then the beam struggle.
Goku versus Vegeta. When he's ripped to shreds.
Yeah, and then ends with Vegeta transforming.
That's a classic episode, though.
Yeah, and it was. So yeah, I should say there were several episodes. Okay, there were 3 episodes during the Saiyan arc where I was kind of tossing around which that I came close to giving 5 out of 5 and. So, in addition, there was actually Dragon Ball Z episode 28 where Piccolo dies.
Very emotional.
Which, I think I gave that I don't know 4.75 out of 5 or these kind of ridiculous scores, but very close to 5 because one of the reasons I didn't at the end was because I thought it would be kind of weird if I gave the same score to episode 28 of both Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z.
Good number.
But yeah, apparently, and then oh god, there's some other good episode. Yeah, I don't know. Some other during that whole sequence, there's another really good episode that I almost.
So you like the Vegeta fight essentials, or what we're trying to come to the conclusion of?
Yeah, well, I think there are a lot of episodes that are just really well made, like great animation, and I guess, yeah.
Now, I'm surprised you didn't put, again, my opinion, the Tao Pai Pai Goku fight, the second one, with the double chops. I love it. That's so iconic to me.
Well, okay, so that's something where I really like it in the manga, and then the anime, it has they add in the thing where Tao Pai Pai, he just leaves. He leaves to climb up the tower and train with Karin.
He climbs up like a spider.
Yeah. Then Goku just goes to sleep, essentially. And I really didn't like that because I thought it just screwed up the whole momentum of the thing and I thought it was just kind of pointless. I did like Tao's interactions with Karin. I thought that was interesting. And then they had the black Kintoon, the black cloud. I love that,
even though it was there's no explanation about that thing at all, bro. Maybe Goku Black uses that, bro. Maybe that's what Goku Black uses.
Yeah, but anyway, so I didn't. So that's one of the things where I like the manga a lot better. But I guess with the fight with Vegeta, it's the opposite. Where there's probably before now, I probably wouldn't have considered it one of my favorite fights, and I guess I probably still don't. But as far as how it's presented in the anime, I think the anime elevates it just with a bunch of very well-made episodes.
Yeah. Now, what was the other 5 out of 5?
So the other 5 out of 5, getting to that, was the Bardock special.
Oh, not in the manga at all.
No, yeah. So this is even Toriyama said this is a story he personally would have never made, this kind of dark story, but he really liked it. He said it's something he thought they did a great job, and it added something he wouldn't have been able to contribute on his own. And I guess that's kind of my opinion as well, is that it's a very different take on the series in a number of ways. It's been noted it's pretty dark. It's also it's very continuity obsessed actually. The entire special derives from previously referenced backstory. That's kind of the point. That's the starting point. Is just okay. Let's show all of these things we've heard about in one place. So it's we've got what the Saiyans did. What was their everyday job? And so we see them do. We see them.
We
attack
didn't see the meat
planet.
factory though, but that's okay.
Okay. Well, so we see them attacking a planet. We see we see Vegeta showing promise as a very young child.
Apple with hair.
Yeah, and which is referenced. It's a lot of it's taken from what Dodoria tells Vegeta in the Namek arc before he gets killed, where
He did not tell him Nappa had hair, though.
No. But, yeah, so it's like, well, when he says, like, okay, well, Frieza blew up the planet because the Saiyans were getting stronger, and if they teamed up, like, then it would be kind of a nuisance. And, you know, there were people like you, Vegeta, who showed exceptional warriors being born, and if you all ganged up on us, it would be kind of a nuisance. And so this is like the exact, like, this conversation is what we see occur in the Bardock special. And then, but it's kind of interesting historically in that this came out before the concept of a Super Saiyan got really introduced. It had kind of been mentioned at random without explanation.
Yeah, there's the whole Nappa thing where he mentions it kind of randomly, and then, of course, little teases of... Remember that scene where Frieza's on the ship? Super Saiyajin, Super Saiyajin. He's like paranoid.
Well, the thing is, okay, so in the original... In the manga, he says Super Saiyan. In the anime, the first time around, Nakao, he actually says Cho Saiyajin.
I actually remember that. And I remember thinking, did they change their mind about this?
Well, in the manga, it's from the start, it's indicated that it's the kanji for the Japanese character for super, which is read as Cho in Japanese, but it's indicated that it should be pronounced as the English word super. And so this is in the manga, you can see like, they've got the furigana to indicate how it's read, and it's supposed to be read as super, the English word, but apparently... Nakao either didn't notice this or the script was wrong, and so he says Cho, the Japanese word, rather than the English word.
And nobody corrected him.
Yeah, and so this until, and so it doesn't really match anything else in the series. And then in Kai though, so that scene in Kai, they changed it to super.
Yeah.
And anyway, so it's
Kai they fixed it.
Yeah, and so they mentioned this term a few times without it being explained, but then it's only later that we get the idea that, Frieza destroyed the planet because he was afraid of a Super Saiyan, you know. And, I mean, if in universe-wise, you could say, like, he just didn't want to admit that to anybody. But, like, production-wise, the reason why Super Saiyan is never mentioned in the Bardock special at all. And production-wise, the reason why that happened is because the people making the special at that point... They didn't know that it was going to become a big plot point down the road that Frieza was afraid of Super Saiyans and that was probably the real reason why he destroyed the planet.
Well, yeah, the original... And I love... That's actually a good retcon, because like you said, the original thing was that Frieza was afraid of them ganging up on him and getting really strong. That makes sense. But no, later on, it's not just that. It's also to add to that this whole myth. And there's the whole thing where he's, you know... There's the whole thing where he is paranoid about it, and I love that, you know, he doesn't really know whether or not to believe it, but he knows that there is a myth. And then, of course, we found out later it was chilled, even though that was not written by Toriyama, but that's not what I'm going to say. Who cares? Episode of
so
problems.
He doesn't seem to want to admit it to, and he doesn't want to admit that he's scared of this thing.
I love that about his character.
He seems to, even just in spite of himself, he can't really be easy about it. And anyway, but that hadn't been introduced at this time. So in the Bardock special, they're simply just matter of fact like, well, we don't want them teaming up, but whatever. And then the other thing is that at this point we knew that Vegeta was the Prince of the Saiyans, which is in fact something that was not mentioned in the Saiyan arc. In the Saiyan arc,
no, it was not. He's just a super elite. Yeah,
he talks about being a super elite. He talks about having been the strongest Saiyan. And then it's not until Dodoria where Dodoria gives this whole backstory. It was like, but you the prince, you had a lot of potential, so Frieza spared you.
Yeah, he was not supposed to be the prince originally, and that's another thing. I'm glad you brought that up. A lot of fans forget that. They don't pick up on that. Also, Herms, another fun tidbit is that when Nappa and Vegeta were first coming to Earth, their original point of getting the Dragon Balls and wishing for immortality was to fight forever. But that was later on kind of semi-retconned into Vegeta wanting immortality, of course, to protect himself from Frieza. You know, so it's interesting how, again, we're seeing Toriyama. It's not a plot hole, but it's, I don't know what you'd call it. It is a retcon. It is retroactive continuity.
Soft retcon, I guess.
Yeah.
But anyway, so like with the Bardock special, they did know that at that point they knew Vegeta was the prince, but King Vegeta had never been mentioned. Like in the manga, he's never even mentioned by name. They just say, the king, your father, the king.
That's it.
And we never see him. There's no flashbacks to what he looks like. the anime, the episodes do eventually give us that version of him where it's, Vegeta with a beard, which was drawn by Toriyama, and we learned that he was named King Vegeta, and
yeah, that was Dragon Ball Z episode 78, where a lot of people get mixed up because they think that that's part of the Bardock special. And the thing is, it probably takes place like in the same day, but it's not in the special. However, there is a supercut of the Bardock special that that is out there, which I'll probably interview the guy who made that in the future, but where he puts that back in there.
Yeah, and so essentially, so the King. It wasn't until later that we got King Vegeta. So in the Bardock special, King Vegeta is never mentioned or seen at all in the Japanese version, and then it's kind of odd that so the Funimation dub of it, they did include a reference to Bardock. I don't know if they even mention him by name, but they say that Bardock is almost as strong as the King at this point. So there's that one in their version. There's that throwaway reference to the King, but he still, we never see him. So this is actually why, like that with Dragon Ball Z episode 78, this is why we get that kind of flashback where, okay, so in the manga we don't get Bardock until later. He's not mentioned until later. Because Toriyama liked the special so much, he included Bardock in the manga eventually. But in when Frieza is about to transform to his second form, he says that when he attacked Planet Vegeta and fought the King, he had no need to transform. So he brags about that, which, if in the context of the Bardock special on its own, doesn't make any sense, because in that version, he just blows up the planet from space, and he doesn't even fight directly against anybody.
No, not at all.
I mean, kind of Bardock, who's really just there. He just gets steamrolled by this giant ki blast of Frieza's. But anyway, so it seems like that's the reason why they made that flashback in episode 78 to reconcile the Bardock special with Frieza talking about fighting the King. And so that's why they have the thing where King Vegeta personally flies up to Frieza's spaceship and attacks him there. Yeah. And then he loses. And then at that point, Frieza goes out of his ship. And it's exactly what we see in the Bardock special, to the point that they just reuse the footage of him blowing up the planet from space.
Yeah. But exactly, yeah. It's people always get it mixed up, though, saying it was in the Bardock special when it actually wasn't. But again, it's right around the same thing. So 5 out of 5 for the Bardock special then. Very, very interesting. Now, do you like Bardock more than Trunks? I do. I like the Bardock special a little bit more than the Trunks one. My opinion, of course.
You don't mean the character, just like the specials.
No, the actual special.
Yeah. So, it's hard to say. So at this point, I knew going into this that I was probably going to give Bardock special 5 out of 5. And, I waited till I actually saw it to, officially make that this meaningless decision about this arbitrary score.
Now, what would you give episode of Bardock?
I'd have to rewatch it, but...
Well, it's 20 minutes.
Yeah. Well, I'd have to wait till, I don't know, whatever the appropriate
Whenever. Time. You don't even know. It could be any time. So, yeah.
Anyway, so at this point, there's nothing that I don't know what I'll give a 5 out of 5. If any, this could be it. That could be the last thing I ever give a perfect score to, for all I know. But I would think the Trunks special would be a strong contender. So, but I have to see what I think when I actually get to it.
Episode 120 has to get a 5 out of 5, Herms.
Oh.
Do it for Mary. Do it for me.
Oh, yeah.
It has to. That's, dude, not Solid State Scout. I'm talking, Battle Point Unlimited, dude. Just, that beat the manga for me, just being honest with you. Whenever there's music, the manga tends to kind of, because I like the music so much, it kind of tends to fall on the wayside. Okay, Gohan becoming SS2. Manga or anime? I like both, but I think the anime scene, the original one, is just one of the best scenes in the entire, maybe the best scene in the entire series.
Yeah, that is a good scene.
Yeah, it's hard to follow with.
All the transformations, they're a lot flashier, obviously, in the anime, and sometimes that's a little overdone, but a lot of times it feels a lot more special than the manga, where Toriyama doesn't beat around the bush. He just kind of has people go boom, and then they're transformed. Frieza's transformations are the ones that probably get the most detail in the manga, because you kind of see him physically, each part of his body physically transform.
Herms, I was very let down we didn't see that in Resurrection F. Because, I really wanted to see him go through all 4 forms with the updated animation. You imagine how awesome that would have been?
Yeah, would have been kind of hard. Maybe not all of them, but kind of wanted to see them do the thing with when he goes into his final form in the anime.
And he cracks?
Yeah, like that kind of weird. That's one thing, because that is one thing where the manga version he does, it's just boom, and then there he is. But yeah, the anime has the weird thing where he cracks like an egg and has his real form underneath.
That was weird to me. That was always weird to me.
Yeah, I do tend to like things that are kind of weird and inexplicable like that.
Well, and that whole thing is based off of the xenomorphs anyways in some ways. So, I mean, that whole form is wacky.
Yeah. Anyway, so I would have liked to have seen, maybe he could have gone from his first form to his final form in that cracked way or something. Although it would have been kind of, I don't know. I don't know how they could have made that work if he's... But, I don't know. It would have been weird. I think it would have been hard to make it... I think it would have been hard to go through all of the forms without it just being a bit tedious. Because in the TV show it works because you can just... It's not all in... They have time to introduce each form and play around with it a bit before moving on to the next one. But in a movie, they'd either have to like rush straight through it, or it would take forever, and then it would take up too much of the movie.
I thought they could have rushed through it and just done like a boom, boom, and then boom. I would have just loved to have seen it. Now, Herms, I was very surprised too, because maybe it's nostalgia talking, but the episode where Goku arrives on planet Namek and he gets out of the ship, dun dun dun. Dun dun dun. That's a 5 out of 5 episode to me, bro. That whole thing where he just shoots right by Raccoon with the Kaioken, even though it's cartoony. They do they do that. He gives Gohan the Senzu. I thought that kind of thing was just so damn epic, bro. And also, his gi. People don't point out his gi, bro. I'm obviously I'm not as fluent as you are in the language, but Goku's gi is not the Kame Sennin or the Kami-sama symbol.
Kaio-sama.
Kaio-sama. I feel stupid. Yes, the Kaio-sama. Well, he trained with Kami too, but he never got a symbol. It's not the Kaio symbol either. It's the Son Goku symbol.
Yeah, so when he arrives on Namek, he switches to wearing the symbol, the Go in Goku, which on its own, like it means to understand in kind of a spiritual sense sometimes. So if you've ever... So, in his name it's read as Goku, but on its own it could be read as the verb satoru, to understand. And in Buddhism they have a concept called satori, which is from another conjugation of the same word. And that kind of means like kind of enlightenment, knowing things in a spiritual sense. And
so basically what's going on there, the way I interpreted that, was... Like Go ahead.
Well, yeah, like it seems like he's become his own master.
Yeah, he has mastered... Exactly. I interpreted that as he has nothing left to learn. He is now a grand master of the martial arts. And to go by that theory, he never gets another master in the series until Whis.
Yeah.
He teaches Gohan in the Cell arc.
Yeah, and we do... Toriyama has said that he kind of just stopped drawing the symbols on people because it's kind of a nuisance past a certain point. And so that's why this in the Cell arc and the Buu arc, he just goes to a version of his uniform without any of those symbols. And then, of course, with Resurrection F, he gets the thing that's personally signed by Whis with a little squiggly mark.
The little squiggly mark, yeah, which I thought was a great touch because... you were this grand master, and now you're facing somebody who's leagues ahead of you, obviously. So, we're up to episode 67. One last question for you, bro. Your thoughts on Dragon Ball Z movies, Dead Zone or Dragon Ball Z the movie, The World's Strongest, Konoyo de Ichiban Yatsu, which is the world's strongest guy, I guess.
Yeah.
The strongest guy in the world, right?
Yeah, essentially. I mean, like the English title is World's Strongest, which is it's a pretty good translation.
I love that title. And then, of course, Chikyu Marugoto Chokesen, which, this has like 4 different translations. Now, I've always called it Earth's Ultimate Deciding Battle. Toei calls it Super Decisive Battle for the Earth. Of course, Funimation makes it Tree of Might. But what would you call this movie if you were the interpreter?
So the grammar there, it's a little open to interpretation, but okay, so Skew is Earth, planet Earth. Marugoto means the entire thing, so the entire Earth, and then Cho, again, super, obviously, and then Kessen is like literally it's a decisive battle. The Ketsu is decide, and then Sen, battle, and then when you combine the words, it becomes Kessen, Like it gets abbreviated into Kessen. So like a decisive battle or a showdown essentially. And so in the implication being it's to decide the fate of the Earth, or to, just to decide like how things.
Like super decisive battle for Earth was the Toei version.
Yeah, like I don't think you really need to literally. I don't think you need the word decide in there. It's probably a bit overly literal. Like it is that it's the showdown. It's a decisive battle. So I think showdown works. But okay, if you take it bit by bit, then it's just the Earth, the entire Earth super decisive super showdown. And so
the Earth Super Showdown.
Yeah, and K17 on the forums, in fact.
The legend.
He's a Japanese person living in Japan, native speaker, and he said at one point that his personal interpretation of the title was that it meant a showdown on Earth, like a showdown taking place over the entire Earth.
So would you translate it as, let's say, showdown on Earth?
Well, like the entire, like in that version, it'd almost be like not a world tour, but like the idea being that they're fighting all over the world, which isn't really what we see.
No, hell no.
But which is, I guess, is why we never thought of it. But
showdown in the entire world.
Yeah, I guess you could worldwide showdown. I guess, but we do know that they came up with these titles first and then came up with the plots later. So essentially, they probably weren't. They just kind of came up with something that sounded cool and then came up with the actual storyline later and didn't necessarily see if they correlated in any way. Which is why, the Japanese titles, they're often fairly random and don't have a heck of a lot to do with what's going on in the movie.
I mean, are you a fan of those titles? Because I remember having a discussion with QAAMAN about the English titles versus the Japanese ones, and I feel that some of the English ones are fine, but I feel like some of them are also too like Lord Slug.
Yeah, it's
That's
like it has
stupid name, bro.
Like it has the opposite problem. Like the Japanese are too vague, where it's like, oh, the amazing fight. Like every movie, you could switch the titles around and it wouldn't make any difference. Whereas the Funimation titles, a lot of them are pretty cool. But then, Triamite, I think that's a good title. And then some of them, though, they have the opposite problem where they're too on the nose. Well, yeah, like Lord Slug, Super Android 13, where they're just naming it after the villain and that's all. And that's a bit boring.
Yeah. So what'd you think? I mean, I thought it was boring too, but I mean, I'm just real quick. I love, the super awesome guy, strongest in the universe. Like, I love those like epic names. But I do like, Funimation has, Fusion Reborn. That's fine. Revival of Fusion. That's fine.
Yeah, which is notably like Fusion Reborn. That's based directly on the Japanese title, which is like, the resurrection.
Fukkatsu no Fusion.
Yeah. Resurrection of Fusion, Goku.
Maybe
and
they
Vegeta.
should have called it Frieza Reborn.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of all the 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. But I mean, you could Fusion Reborn. You can tell they're basing it off of the Japanese title. They're making it something that's a bit snappier in English, but they're not just coming up with something that has zero relation to the original title. And that's what they've stuck to. I mean, with Resurrection F itself, where it's a bit liberal, like compared to Fukkatsu no F, which is like...
Was Resurrection F not the idea of Toei? I could have sworn Hujio said once that Toei is the one that named it Resurrection F. Right?
That might be true, but... I mean, anyway, either way, you could say, like, it's slight... Like, if you translated the Japanese title literally, it would be The Revival of F. And then you can see Resurrection F. It's a tiny, like they take out the of, but it doesn't really change the meaning.
They're both pretty simple titles, though, I think.
Yeah.
And then we got Wrath of the Dragon, which is, Dragon Fist Explosion. If Goku can't do it, who can or who will? Which I thought they could have just called that Dragon Fist Explosion, but they called it Wrath of the Dragon. All right. I mean, Wrath is not something that Goku seems to be, cool with, especially not movie Goku, but whatever,
Yeah, so that's another one where you can, they're kind of very loosely based off the Japanese title.
And by the way, Herms, just real quick, I just want to say one quick thing. I went to Wikipedia. According to Wikipedia, Herms, Wrath of the Dragon was directed by Mel Gibson and produced by Ron Howard. I'm not kidding. I'm serious.
Oh, it should have. It doesn't really show though. You can't really tell that. It doesn't have the quintessential Ron Howard touch, does it?
No, it doesn't have the anti-Semitism. So I don't know. I mean, then again, maybe the dragon's a metaphor for something. Who knows? I just put on Twitter right now, like as we're recording this, I put the picture so you can see it of Mel Gibson and Ron Howard. Doesn't sound right.
So, would you say that Hoy might be an anti-Semitic stereotype?
I'm not touching that one, bro. All right. So, of the movies you've seen, which one do you like the best? Besides Sleeping Princess, the Z one.
Yeah. Okay. So I think second place is Dragon Ball Z movie 1, like the Dead Zone, and which I think, like I said, that was pretty close. I think it's 4.75 out of 5.
Have you seen what K17 said about it? About how Ora no Gohan no Kaisei is actually wrong?
Well, yeah, I was kind of thinking about that. For years, the Japanese title for this movie was said to be Ora no Gohan no Kaisei, Return My Gohan, which is in fact a line Goku says in the movie at one point when he drops down to the castle. And it's so, as Kay has kind of uncovered, when it was originally released, it was just released as Dragon Ball Z, the movie, essentially. No subtitle, which the first Dragon Ball movie followed the same thing. And
isn't there a title card that says Legend of Shenlong?
I think that might have been added later. I don't know. I have to investigate that later. But essentially, what we were told with Dragon Ball Z movie 1 is that it was released nameless, just as Dragon Ball Z, and then later on they gave Return My Gohan as the specific title for the movie.
Yep.
And then Kay came up with he investigated it, and essentially, I might be getting the details wrong, but essentially, like the back of the DVD cover.
Yeah, it was the back of the VHS cover because this was on VHS. Yeah. On the upper left said "Ora no Gohan no Kaisen," and we all assumed that was
which was just there as just a quote from the movie. It was just like on a. They do this with DVD, VHS and DVD covers in English
You're
as
in
well.
the wrong generation, Herms.
Yeah, but they just have a quote from the movie, just to provide, just to help sell it, essentially. And so that's what they had with this VHS cover was they had that quote from the movie there, and then at some point somebody thought it was the title, and that got somehow cemented in place as the title, which wasn't what it was intended for when they wrote those words on that VHS thing.
Yeah, it was, and I'll be honest with you, bro. For years, I thought that was the title. We all did, and then he uncovered that no, it's probably not the title. It's just a quote. So you like that one the most of the original Z trilogy, right?
Yeah, it doesn't let up at any point. There's nothing in that movie I'd cut out, whereas the other movies generally have something about them that I don't like, or some bit. Like the second movie, World's Strongest, it has this Gohan song, which...
You don't like that song?
In the second movie, I don't like it quite. I don't know. It feels out of place. Whereas in the first movie, they have a song with Gohan, but it's like he's drunk off an apple, and some kind of hallucinogenic apple, and so he's high. He sees all these weird things, and so that I like because it fits into the story. It's part of the story that he steals this apple and eats it, and then it's just funny to see this. It's kind of this stupid humor, but still, it's funny to see this kid kind of quasi-stoned running around hallucinating.
Yeah, he was drunk. Essentially, was the way I had always perceived it.
It's like he's kind of drunk, and then he's seeing hallucinations, it's almost like an LSD.
It is. It's like an acid trip. Yeah, and it's funny because I could have sworn the original Ocean dub, even in the uncut one, I think the guy goes, I think Ginger was his name if I remember right. He's like, I think he says something like, "Don't eat that. It makes you act funny," or something like that. Oh, I couldn't say drunk.
Yeah, in Japanese, he does say if kids eat that, they get drunk.
Yeah, which is what happened. So you didn't like I Love Mr. Piccolo then?
No, so I thought it kind of detracted from the movie, and then
But Herms, that movie, that's my favorite non-Battle of Gods movie, Herms. I mean, I'm not saying you hate it or anything, but dude, the Goku screaming the Kaioken and just, you know, the whole plot with Dr. Weedo, and I like that stuff. But go ahead, what were your criticisms of it?
Yeah, well, I did like that a lot, just not as much as the other. That probably is up there so far of the movies I've seen. So I think it's in descending order for me, with movie 1 is the best, then 2 not quite as good, and then 3 is my least favorite so far. Although overall I liked it, and movie 3 loses points because of the dragon, of course.
Oh, the dragon ruins everything, dude. That's what he made the Gara Junior saga terrible.
Yeah, so Higher Dragon, or in the dub Icarus, which almost makes more sense as a name a child would give a pet. Whereas Higher Dragon is a name that's actually been kind of misinterpreted among English fans, where it's actually, in Japanese, they use the English word hire to refer to a hired driver. And so...
Really? I never knew that.
Yeah, and
I want to give you a big hug right now, bro.
The idea is that, because Gohan rides this dragon around, it's like his chauffeur, essentially. And like these days, we'd probably say like an Uber dragon. And then it's interesting that this dragon is actually extreme design-wise. It's almost identical to a creature called Taxi Dragon, who appears in Dr. Slump.
So that's where they got it from.
Yeah, essentially they ripped it off from there. And so, Taxi Dragon, from that to Higher Dragon as in hired driver, so you can kind of see the connection. But I guess like I was saying, it doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense that Gohan would call his pet Higher Dragon, even with the chauffeur connection. It's like, why would you call your pet that? Whereas Icarus, at the very least, it makes sense that Icarus, of course, is a reference to Greek mythology. It's the guy who flew too close to the sun on these artificial wings, and then he crashed. Because, of course, in Greek mythology, the sun is 3 feet away from the earth and is a god of its own. And anyway, so it actually makes sense to me that a bookish 5-year-old would name its pet Icarus. Although there is the objection that it seems like a unlucky name to give something you're going to ride around on.
So if you had a pet dog, you wouldn't call him Higher Dog then?
No.
Okay. Yeah. Well, now, what about the original evil Goku as a villain? Tell us. The real evil Goku. Goku Black.
I mean, it is it's almost too on the nose in the movie, where the concept behind him is oh, what if Goku never hit his head and just stayed as an evil Saiyan who went around attacking planets? And so, which they actually say at one point, Goku's like, well, I'm really glad that I hit my head as a baby, because otherwise it would have turned out like you. And then later on, at the end of the movie, they again say oh, we're really lucky you hit your head as a kid. So I think they maybe played up the connection a bit too much. But what I did realize watching this is that essentially, this isn't actually evil Goku, because when you look at the plot of this movie, this is a guy who he gets his power eating fruit. He has a crew of diverse allies whom he's recruited from different places. And he's traveling around. He's traveling through space. He wants to be king of the universe. So he's essentially like an evil space Luffy.
Yeah. He's a space pirate.
Yeah. Rather than Goku, he's more similar. He's evil Luffy.
I did a whole video on the Tree of Godly Might or whatever. I did a whole video on it, and about the roots of where they got the idea from. And I thought it was a very creative. See, these movies, the Shinseiju, these movies have some pretty good ideas, man. Especially the early ones. But then, of course, when we get to Lord Slug, the Lord Slug movie, it's the Piccolo arc over again. Yeah.
And originality-wise, it kind of drops off. But yeah, the tree is a more original idea than Tulis himself.
Now, what did you think about the fact that in movie 2, I was going to ask you this a few minutes ago, but I have forgotten. Now I remembered that Muten Roshi gets a spotlight again, because that's one thing I like about that movie, is that not only do you see that, but you see the student teacher Kamehameha, which I thought was a great scene for fans. If you watch it in order, bro, and you see that, it's such a satisfying scene for fans of Dragon Ball from the beginning to see all three of them light it up.
Yeah, I do always love when he gets to be a relevant character. That is one of the reasons that I like the early portion of Dragon Ball versus kind of. I mean, like I like it when he's a relevant character and a guy who says why. He's got the perverted side, but still, he's actually here say wise things and here actually be good in a fight. Whereas later, like at this, where the point where I am now, with the Frieza stuff, he's kind of irrelevant, and they only bring him on to do just jokes about him reading porn magazines.
Yeah, and touching Bulma.
Yeah, and it just gets kind of repetitive, and there's no real. They just use it to pad things out. But when in his prime, he's probably one of my favorite characters, and I do like seeing him fight again in that movie just for a little bit.
Yeah, me too. All right, well, that kind of wraps up our little discussion. A little longer than I expected. I'm probably going to cut it into 2 parts.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you being on, Herms, and talking about Dragon Ball. I had fun, bro. I like the fact that we're actually just having a conversation and not just, trying to explain things. We're actually just having a fun conversation about Dragon Ball without going too in depth. Even though you do that throughout this discussion, still, it's not like you had to,
Yeah.
So everybody check out Herms. And we're going to stop at episode 67 of Dragon Ball Z, which is where you're at right now at this point. And then we're going to pick it up whenever you get done with the series. Are you going to watch GT?
Yeah. So that's the plan.
So that's what we'll do is we'll probably have you back on whenever that's done. Might not be in a year. Maybe by the end of the year you should have it
That's
done.
my plan. This was my, I guess I didn't mention it. This was one of my New Year's resolutions.
To watch the whole series?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're gonna have to dig up that Astro Boy One Piece Dragon Ball special too to throw that in there as well. And you've got to go back and watch the Fire Brigade and Traffic Safety because those are crucial canon stories. Just for the fact that they redo the intro song, I think is worth it.
Yes, I'll have to give them a look.
You must.
One day.
All right, well, everybody check out Herms on Twitter, twitter.com/Herms98. You can see his commentary every single time he watches an episode. Little tidbits you pick up on here and there. Hopefully, somebody on Kanzenshu like Mike or one of those guys or Heath is cataloging those to throw into the episode. I would love it if they threw those into the episode recaps as little tidbits here and there. That would be very, very nice. But yeah, thank you again, Herms.
No problem.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for checking it out. We'll catch you next time.